Okay, let's rotate this rocket now as it's going up and down. Get it to align to the direction that it's moving in. So on the rocket here, I'm going to go to E, press E for my rotate tool. And on my rocket and my view, the axis I want to rotate is X, the red one. It's entirely possible that the axis you want to rotate to make it go up and down like this is going to be Y or Z, okay? Z is blue, Y is green. That's okay, all right? It doesn't matter which axis it is, just make sure you're only working one axis at a time. You don't want to grab this light blue handle out here and or start like trying to get all fancy and animate more than one axis at once. That's going to drive you absolutely crazy. You always want to try to simplify your animation problems by working on one axis or channel at a time, if possible. It's not always going to be possible. All right, so I'm going to take a quick look here. All right, so at the bottom, right? Okay, so I think when it's at the bottom, let's select a rotate X here, and I'm going to key it as it is right here. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to do that for every low point in Translate Y. In fact, I'm going to select Translate Y so I'm not looking at anything else. And just key that to 0. The idea being that it kind of like levels out and goes back to this at 0. And then all the way here to the little post frame. All right. So now what I want to do is, as I scroll out here, and I'm going to rotate my camera a little bit, is I'm going to look at the slope of this curve, and I'm going to try and think about how I want my rotate to match up to that, right? I mean, if I try to make it match it exactly, it's going to do that, which is really, really extreme and not at all really correct. So I want to kind of get that at a little bit after, I think. So key selected. All right, so now I got my rotate X, then a fall. Okay, that seems maybe a little steep. I'm going to drop it off a bit. And what I'm looking at too here is I'm looking at my overlapping animation of my antenna, and making sure I'm not like overpowering that overlapping animation and making it invisible, right? So if I do this too extreme, you can't notice the overlapping animation anymore, right? So I would have to go back and I would have to fix that, right? I'd have to make sure that the overlapping animation is exaggerated further to accommodate this right here, right? So, but if I select this keyframe and I lower the amount of rotation, you can still see the overlapping action. All right, so I'm going to select this keyframe here, press Ctrl-C to copy it, and I'm going to go to one frame after each peak and paste it in to start. And then we're going to go back and look at editing this. All right. So it reaches the peak, and then shortly after it reaches the peak on Y. So I'm overlapping this action as well, right? So this is kind of a secondary animation that's also being overlapped. And secondary animation, like like I've said if you watch the videos, it's just secondary or supporting action of this rocket flying through space. All right, let's play that and take a look. Okay. I could try and make it point down as it's going down. Let's see. No, I don't like that too much. I like keeping this one kind of subtle, and this probably looks completely different than what I did earlier when in the one that I showed you, but that's okay. So this is the baseline, right? This is the 0 point. I think I'm going to change that a little bit so that it doesn't ever sit perfectly even. All right, so it's never going to sit perfectly level in a straight line. And I'm going to give each one a slightly different value. Always looking at what I'm doing. I wasn't doing that there, but now I am. So yeah, on the ones where the change is a little steeper, makes sense to point it down a little bit. And these two, the front and the end, need to follow each other. So move them just a tiny bit, just so they're not sitting right at 0. Okay, maybe a little more than that. I mean, ideally the rotate pivot would be in here, but that would be a slightly more complicated rig to set up, because then we would have nodes for translating, nodes for rotating, and that's a bit much. I mean, I know it looks a little weird how it's rotating from the back there, but we're going to deal with that for now. Although, let's see here. I'm curious if I can actually change it post fact. There. I think yep, made a small change. You don't have to do that. You can leave your pivot point where you're at. That was just kind of bothering me. Not really sure it made as much of a change as I thought it would, or if it changed anything at all, but anyway, we're going to go on. All right, so the other thing is now I'm going to add some roll on what is my y-axis right here. So let's select the rocket and the translate y and the rotate x, and I'm going to key the rotate y right where it is at the bottom of each one here. And you can make yours rotate however you want. If you think yours should rotate differently, by all means, do it. All right, so as it goes up, I'm gonna rotate it like so. And once again, I gotta make sure it's not gonna conflict with the overlapping action, and it did. It's too strong. There, that's better. All right, so I'm going to copy this now, and I'm going to make it lag just a little bit behind the peaks of when it goes up in y. Copy, paste. It always pastes where your marker in the timeline is. It's not a lot of rotation, but it's something. W to move that down. Be very careful that it just doesn't conflict with the overlapping action. And you can always go back and redo the overlapping action if you, to make it look right. If you get some motion that you really like, that's right on the edge of overwriting that. So I'm going to back off it a little bit. But there we go. All right. Not 100% happy with that, but it's not completely horrible. So let's move on to doing a starry background.